and welcome to this episode of Oyald Table. So, in case you don't know what Oyald is all about, shortly you're going to know about this because one of the members of the Oyald Table is going to, the Oyald organization, is going to be introducing this organization, the organization behind, the brain behind this program, which is basically going to be talking about several things that affect our African community. So, today we're going to be touching the topic, which is, I'll say it's a very sad topic because you can want to look at it from a perspective of, okay, looking at these people as criminals, but then you get to see they are kind of the victims in a way. So you have this this mindset of, okay, should I prosecute them or should I feel for them? So it's going to be talks about the drug problem we are facing in our African community. So this is going to be a very deep one, and I think you might not have been affected by this personally, but definitely you know somebody who has been affected by this. So stay tuned for all the conversation, and shortly we're going to get to meet our panel.
So I am Arrah Emmanuel. I am a monitoring and evaluation expert by profession, but I'm a serial entrepreneur by passion. And actually, as a monitoring and evaluation expert, what I do is I work with communities, development related, but at times conservation and development issues. And so I like to work with numbers, statistics. That's my profession. But with my passion, which is a serial entrepreneur, I get to start up a lot of startup ventures and businesses and things like that. And that's what gives me a wide range in the society, because the businesses I've jumped into, it ranges from entertainment to agriculture, spanning into tech. So I just jump almost everywhere, and that gives me an opinion cutting across. I also happen to be a member of the Oyald organization, which is the Organization of Young African Leaders for Development, which is powering this platform. The whole idea is a group of Africans who are involved in development-related issues, cutting across 24 countries about, got together and they decided to engage in aspects which have to do with development on the continent. So they were like, well, we can carry out all of these projects on the ground, but as long as the narrative around Africa is still a negative one and people don't get to understand the perspective of Africans with regards to Africa, we might always be missing the point. So hence the issue of the Oyald Table, and we felt like, why not talk about social issues and propose solutions ranging from various fields. We'll be proposing solutions which could lead now to some projects. Some people could adopt these ideas which are put on the Oyald Table, and it could lead to the projects we are implementing. So it's just something trying to spark up the thoughts in the right direction.
Thank you for having me. By the way, it's an honor to represent an African organization which is aiming to make Africa great, That's my daily motto, like to make Africa great.
My name is Joseph from Nigeria. I'm a clinical and public health oriented pharmacist by profession. Of course, just like my other friend said, I'm an entrepreneur by the side, specifically an entertainer. But very importantly, in line with what we are here to talk about, I am a very passionate pharmacist when it comes to public health issues, particularly sexual and reproductive health, and very importantly, on substance abuse. Presently, I'm the Public Relations Officer of the Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria in Rivers State, in southern Nigeria. But there I'm the Secretary of the Drug and Substance Abuse Reduction Team. That's a standing committee of the Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria in Rivers State. Okay, so if you know the states in Nigeria, Rivers State is in the south. It's an oil-rich state. It's a very popular state. It's a very remarkable state. It's known as the treasure base of the nation. And of course, I am also a past member of a body of drug and substance abuse reduction at the national level. So I was co-opted into that body in 2017. Presently, I'm still very much the secretary of the body in the state up till now, and I don't think I think I'll still be there probably next year. So we've done quite a couple of things, and I'm also the founder and team leader of Pharma Guide Nigeria, a drug and, of course, drug information and health information facility, an organization, not an NGO, but it's a registered organization under the Company and Allied Commission of Nigeria. So we basically share information that is relevant to the society, especially with contemporary issues like drug abuse, and of course the very neglected but yet very important topic of sexual and reproductive health. So this is my person, and of course talking is my hobby, so I could talk as long as it's aimed at educating, enlightening, and entertaining. So this is my personality, and I'm excited to be on this platform. I'm very, very hopeful that I'll be able to share great insights about the subject matter, what's being done here in Nigeria, what's been experienced here in Nigeria, and also prefer well-researched, well-thought-of solutions that can help us drive change here in Nigeria and across the African continent. Thank you so much. It's good to be here.
Hello, everybody. Bless you all. Thank you for having me on the platform. So, my name is Kwame, and I am a pastor, but as well I do provide an outstanding experience to both learners and employers by making sure that they do get good, effective return on investment when they invest into the apprentices. So this is what I do on a day-to-day basis as well. I will say that the subject matter that we're treating is quite dear to my heart, because I have had I have known people who have struggled with these elements in the past. So I'm hoping that could someone in need. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So we are going to talk about the personal experiences we have had with drug abuse, and also was really touched on our communities and how drug abuse is impacting our communities and the root to some of this abuse. So we are going to go around again and talk about some personal experiences. So this time around, we can start with Mr. Kwame.
Thank you for the question. So I have known people who struggle with all kinds of addictions. Substance abuse just happens to be one of them. And you usually find out that when you look at the causative effects or the catalyst that really drove them to go into this substance abuse, it always has had to do with a transition at some point in time, or them going through a traumatic experience at some point in time. That is the point where they actually find drugs. Usually you find someone has introduced them to drugs. So I have met people, and I have had some chats with individuals who have battled drug addiction and all kinds of other addictions. But I guess today we're talking about drug addiction. So the toll and the effect that it does take on them is quite significant. They're very withdrawn when they want to indulge in this habit, and I find out that it's something that on a socioeconomic level has ramifications, as well as even when we talk about the individual's family, it just cascades down and down and down, and it really has a big knock-on effect on the family, the new unit that is. So yes, I've met people. I have, thankfully, by the grace of God, counseled people along those lines as well. And without divulging or going into further details, I would say that obviously as the talks unfold, we'll get into the nitty-gritties. But yes, I have met people who have struggled with drug abuse, and the toll that it takes on them and their family is quite massive. So that's what I like to say on that one.
Okay, so you said most times the people who have gone through this drug abuse things have been introduced to drug abuse by people who they necessarily know. But Mr. Lufuno, you touched on the media being one of the biggest influence that people youths have, and the media is what's promoting this. Could you touch more on that?
Yes, it's important to understand that I mean, as a parent, I'm a blessed father of 4 kids, so I can say that proudly. We need to keep a very keen eye on the development process that our kids go through, especially when they are younger, I would say, because usually you find out that those that really struggle long term with this are people who were introduced to it quite early. And the role of media, especially now in our current climate, is quite pronounced. The reason is, there's been times when my daughter has said something has come up as an advert that, it's not really user friendly or kid friendly, even though probably she may be on a profile that is restricted to kids. So I find out that it's quite important in England, where I live, even though I'm proudly Ghanaian. You do have a lot of self-harm and substance abuse proliferated, or people get to be introduced to these ways of doing things, as in abuse, through TikTok, through YouTube, through Facebook, and it may be a video that they will take down later, but it would have already done as so much harm, in the lives of these young ones. And we all know that when these kids are younger, they are very ambitious and they like to try anything. So when they are in that position where they see something, they without giving it much thought, they like to try it. They want to know what's in it for me, and it usually starts with the supposedly non-harmful ones, like cigarettes, and then it gradually escalates to probably weed. Then then you have the extremes of people going through meth and cocaine and all the hard substances as we know it. So I think knowing the kind of people I've known and having counseled the people that I've counseled, it does appear to me that there is a trend, and that trend is always, it starts really non-harmful, but then it really escalates and graduates to something that, by the time they on meth, or by the time they on cocaine or marijuana, their cognitive ability would have already been impaired. There would already have been that side of their brain that has been impacted by it. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go on to Nigeria, Mr. Joseph. So from your introduction, you let us know you are on the ground and you're working with people who are of the same mindset, trying to combat the drug abuse situation in Nigeria. So what can you tell us about the situation over there?
All right, thank you so much. There's a whole lot going on in Nigeria and, of course, across the African continent regarding drug abuse. It's very disheartening, but again, there is a whole lot that's involved in this issue. So, on one hand, it's a pitiable situation. On the other hand, it's a painful situation, because we're talking about a menace that some persons are cashing out as a result of it. So even when you try to come out to talk about it, you're going to face some kind of deadly resistance that could cost you your life. We're talking about a menace that is jeopardizing the fate of the future of our society. We're talking about a menace that is breaking homes and destroying family institutions. Am I being too complex?
I think you're very clear.
Good. We're talking about a menace that is driving, sending a lot of people to the hospital, making them spend, make avoidable expenses, especially in an impoverished system, in a very terrible time when there is poverty complexed by the COVID-19 pandemic, at a time when there is a high level of unemployment in a nation where We have a whole, of course, a very populated nation, you know. We are one of the most populated. Sadly, we're also one of the nations in the world, I think about number 3, with the highest rate of unemployment. You're talking about a society in a world where there is a lot, you know, making people sad. And of course, we're talking about a menace that enjoys the patronage of the very high and mighty, as well as, unfortunately, the law enforcement agents. So where do you start to address this problem? This is what makes me so sad. We're also talking about a menace that is enjoying poor political will, because, I mean, it's not just to say we don't want drug abuse. It's the government. It's only the government that can fight drug abuse in any nation. Individuals cannot single-handedly fight drug abuse. I repeat, individuals cannot single-handedly fight drug abuse. If not, you just be identified by one drug baron, and your family, your generation can be wiped out, because this is somebody's business. So you talk about a menace where people are cashing out. We were asked to share some experiences. I've come in contact with, you know, a story, a true story, not fiction. You know, so I've passed through some trainings, self-sponsored and also that sponsored by, because the Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria in Rivers State is very passionate about drug and substance abuse reduction. So we've had, you know, programs. I don't know if you've heard about the Colombo Plan. It's actually a program under the United Nations Office of Drug and Crime. You know, it's a United Nations body that, you know, caters about the issues of drug abuse. So there was, when we were together in the class, there was this story by one of our classmates who works in the prison about a particular guy who, you know, had this hallucination. So something told him, you know, that he should kill his father. So the guy just early in the morning took a knife, went to his father's room and stabbed his father and killed his father. So he went back, and something also told him again to go and kill his mother. And then, of course, his mother realized, you know, what is happening, and quickly took, you know, some defense. And of course, they got the police to arrest this guy. He was arrested and detained. Somehow, right there in the prison or wherever he was detained, he somehow had access to razor blade. Can you hear me? And then the young man somehow got that information, whatever speaks to him, and he went, cut off his testes, and put it in the convenience in the toilet and flushed it. That's how bizarre drug and substance abuse can be. Of course, there is a young man who came back from school, and of course, during the morning prayers, his dad asked him to pray, and he fled up and got out the gun and killed his father. So, you know, it's good to share some of these experiences. Well, I have a friend who has been coming, you know, asking for help. And of course, this underscores another very important part of drug abuse. And this is something the youth must know. That drug abuse is very easy. In Nigeria, we have this funny balance. We say, wahala be like bicycle. You know, they hard to start. Drug abuse is so easy to start. But when you get stuck in it, it is not just so difficult medically and, you know, health-wise. It's also difficult to manage in terms of the cost of treatment. And it's also difficult because there's this thing about substance abuse. A lot of families are, you know, pained by the involvement or by the fact that a member of the family is sick or is suffering from a drug use problem. But nobody talks about it. It's a thing of shame for you to come out in the public and say, my son is in the rehab. It's like you're saying all of us in our family are rehab candidates. So because of that, a lot of people will not want to speak out. So many rehab centers are filled to the brim. In fact, as I speak with you, I think I should also say that, I should have added that in my introduction. I am presently working, I'm in my office right now. I'm a pharmacist working in a neuropsychiatric unit. So I see a lot of persons who have issues. I can tell you a lot of stories. So another interesting thing again about drug abuse is that, you see, it lands you into a kind of disease that even when you've recovered, our society is still grappling to understand that you can lead a normal life again. So you're going to face some kind of stigmatization, which can further plunge you back into the same problem you're running away from. We are dealing with a disease condition that even for the rest of your life, recovery is not a definite goal, it's a process. So for a lot of people, they also do not know that there is a problem of education and enlightenment. So a lot of people don't know that when you have suffered an addiction problem, you can spend the rest of your life recovering. So recovering is like salvation. Even when you fall, you pick up your pieces and rise again and continue to make effort. So, but what happens again is that when people recover or when people plunge in a relapse, they say it's a spiritual problem. And some religious bodies aren't helping matters because they're also not well informed. So they spend a lot of time binding and casting, whereas the health care, the knowledge to care for the ill, which God has inspired, is being neglected. So I'm not necessarily blaming, I'm not saying all religious bodies are at fault. I'm a Catholic, I'm a Christian, but I'm saying that some people cash into it and take a lot of money from the persons whose relatives or loved ones are suffering from this problem, and then they make a lot of money and provide no sufficient help. So substance abuse is really wreaking havoc. I'm sure you would have seen cult activities on social media. Think about it. Many years ago, nobody was bold. I don't know about my co-panelist and of course the anchor person. Have you ever tried to kill chicken? Cut the throat of chicken. It's not an easy job for me because it's not as soft as the flesh. When you want to cut the throat of a chicken, you need to really struggle so hard. And you also want to struggle with, the idea of even having the blood of the chicken on your body. I don't know if anybody has experienced that. Now, can you fathom how some people will feel themselves dismembering a fellow human being? Nothing in this world can give you that impetus apart from drug abuse. And of course, we have a lot of cases where some girls have to douche with drugs, with alcohol, the codeine and the different mixture and the different names they call it that down here. And of course, you have a whole lot of persons who see this as a normal thing, go to the motor parks and see people who use drugs. Some of the accidents you have on the road are occasioned by drugs, because a lot of people also do not know that when we talk about drug abuse, we start from alcohol, not just the codeine, not just the tramadol, not just the pentazocine. So it's doing a whole lot in our society. And of course, I'm going to end here. Drug abuse is killing the society and jeopardizing the hope for a saner future. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. That was a very well-informed experience. So let's proceed to South Africa. So Mr. Lufuno, you briefly talked about the media impacting the youth to make certain decisions in the direction of drug abuse. Could you tell us some more about, other things impacting the youth to make this decision?
Okay, thank you. I'm a driven journalist. So upon me doing all these stories about Africa and the whole world, as a journalist, you're a curious person. You ask questions that people don't ask. So I've come to realize that the influence of media is so impactful to a point that it's not even about alcohol or drugs. It's about everything, So, and I came to listen to most of the music that's playing on our general platform. I believe most people have multi-choice DSTV, right? So most of the songs that play there on Channel MTV Base, what they talk about, clubbing, there's this line they love to talk about, popping Zenny, NX, why can't we question those things? You know, why do we allow such lyrics to take over our playlist? You know, why do we allow such music to become inside the popular platforms whereby even young kids can watch it, you know? So borderline, there are shows whereby they be like they play drug abuse series or whatever, you know. But to be honest, they are actually teaching young kids how to do drugs, how to smoke drugs, you know. Because this show I used to watch in DSTV called Drugs Inc. I'm sure you guys are familiar with it, right? Those people, you know what they do? They give you measurements of how to make this certain drugs, you know, in terms of like in they hide it behind in terms of it's a research, but actually they are passing the message around the masses. This is how you make drugs. So like law enforcement and our leaders, they are aware of the situations that are happening. So it's just a plot to make sure that African kids do not rise, you know, they do not become one of the greatest. So the only way to distract them is to give them content that we think is gonna distract them forever.
Yeah, so before you proceed, I just want us to stay on track. So we have touched on the media, but we also know that there are kids from very poor neighborhoods who might not even have access to the media, might not even have access to the things we should mention, might be clueless about these things, but they still do indulge in various forms of drug abuse, right?
Where I come from, it's a township whereby people are affected by a lot of things, economical issues, environmental, you know, emotional issues, absent parents, you know. So there's too many varieties and reasons why people are using drugs. But in most cases, not drugs only, it's alcohol, you know, it's the sale of alcohol now. So which is mostly impacting our people now, you know.
So for me, experience-wise, going back to the question we initially asked, that's our experience. I should I put it like categorize my experience in 3 sections. One was peer pressure. That's coming up as a youth. I wanted to be one of the cool kids. So I really got in contact with some of these things because if you know the cool kids in school, you want to be the hip hop guys, the dance guys playing basketball. Most of the time, these are the guys that come in with the trendy things like the artists holding the red cups and all of that. So there was a factor of peer pressure. And when I went out to Europe for my studies, most of my university education was done out there in Europe. And you have these statements that always come to you. I mean, a friend will tell you like, are you a girl? Why do you keep on drinking soft drinks? Why can't you smoke? Is it your birthday? There are those sentences which I hear them so often. And if you don't know exactly who you are, it's easy to fall into this temptation. And also, when you do most of the research, you realize that they say weed is the gateway drug. So you get into weed, and before you know it, you are sliding into all these other things. You don't even know what you're getting into. So there's the peer pressure factor, which most of the times that's where most youths get into it. They don't know who they are. They feel like they want to try it and get out. Like they wore these shoes and didn't like the shoes and then got some other shoes. But drugs is not like that. Once you put your leg in those shoes, you walk with it for a while. The other aspect I want to talk about was the entertainment aspect, which I think a couple of other speakers have spoken on. But I actually happen to be in entertainment. So I did some rapping, some dancing, all of these things. And as we rightly said, we have the influences like Lil Wayne, DMX. You actually have rap songs where they're telling you how to chop it up, put it in the pot, cook it up, these kilos, these things, yeah. So it actually kind of sells the drug culture to us. And I do a little bit of motivational speaking. And there's an exercise I usually do when I get into halls with youths. I ask them like, how many of you know Dambisa Moyo? That's a famous Zambian economist. They don't know Dambisa Moyo. Do you know Chimamanda? They don't know Chimamanda. Exactly. Do you know Mathai, Wangari Mathai? They don't know her. But do you know Kim Kardashian? They know Kim Kardashian. Do you know Nicki Minaj? They know Nicki Minaj. Do you know Cardi B? They know Cardi B. So you are a student studying literature, economics, but for some reason your role models are Kim Kardashian and Cardi B, which has nothing to do with what you're actually studying. And so you're like on 2 different tracks, running on 2 different tracks at the same time, and it kind of slows you down. That's another side. Entertainment side, I feel like a lot of value is given to the drug culture. Most of the time, we give ourselves an excuse that that's the artist, that's not me. But before you know it, it becomes you because it becomes your child, it becomes your brother. And I'm with artists most of the time, they say they cannot write lyrics or they cannot get on stage or they don't take certain drugs. And once they've conditioned their minds this way, it becomes like the other artists who look up to them in the neighborhood. Like these are the trendsetters in the neighborhoods. All the younger kids are looking up to them. And so if he has to be courageous too, or even take an interview for a job, he needs to take something. So there's the aspect of entertainment. The last thing the experience I wanted to share was my visits. Because usually once a year I take my vacation and I like to travel around Africa. So I visited a couple of places and I had what I call a cultural shock. First was Nigeria, I think it was 2015. So I realized like once you go through the border, because Cameroon, so my Nigerian brother would understand with me, but also I feel like if Cameroon has to solve its drug problem, it has to be in close collaboration with Nigeria because a lot of our supply comes from that end. So if you know your geography, Cameroon is linked with Nigeria along most of our borders. So in the southwest part, we have a Cock border, which goes into the eastern part of Nigeria. And then in the northwest part, you have Nkambe. And then up north, you have borders that are very porous borders. So once you go into Nigeria and you see the amount of codeine that goes into Cameroon from Nigeria, because I think they have like 3 factories in Ilorin, which produce codeine, should I call it cough syrups? But we all know people take them for other things. They are all produced in Nigeria, so it flows into Cameroon. Tramadol gets into Nigeria large scales. So I actually did a road trip into Nigeria, and while traveling through this border, I saw a lot of these things getting in. We know control of what's the dose, the storage methods and all of that flowing in from Nigeria. So that was one of the things, because I had seen the problem in Cameroon, but I could not understand where it was coming from. But once I traveled through that road, I realized that there's a large flow of cough syrup, codeine based from Nigeria, and tramadol. So that's one of the experiences I had. The next thing was when I went to, yeah, go ahead.
You see, when you say it's coming from Nigeria, even here in South Africa, we're having a problem of so many foreigners coming here to sell drugs and poach women, you know. And I'm saying this based on the fact that when police arrest these people, you find out it is a Tanzanian international, it's a Nigerian international, which makes me wonder, why do our African brothers come here to just and continue the devilish work, you know? But it's really not.
My point being is, I'm not blaming the Nigerians or the foreigners. I feel like what my brother Joseph said, where he said the administration, the policies are responsible. If the problem
as a whole, like in terms of we don't respect one another, you know, because you will not go to England and sell drugs, but you can go to Cameroon and sell drugs. No, you go to other countries and sell drugs.
I think my brother Kwame will bear with me when I say Africans sell the most drug in the UK. So we go and sell drugs. Don't be worried. It's not just in South Africa.
Bro, my brother in South Africa, it's not about any particular country. If you really understand how drugs work, and if you understand as a pharmacist, I'll tell you, what are the drugs? What are drugs? Okay, let me ask you a question. If you knew that you could get premium quality ice creams in Nigeria, okay, and you love ice creams, is it likely that you're going to, call me? Okay, you know me already. Is it likely that you probably put a call to me and say, bro, can I have those premium quality ice creams? I'd like to have them. Is it likely?
Yeah.
So now, if you understand how drugs work, okay, let me also go further. If you see a beautiful girl, in case you're not married, and then this girl just drives you, you love the way she speaks, just like our anchor person, the beautiful woman speaks so well. And probably you say, oh, this girl is Nigerian, this girl is Tanzanian, this girl is Nigerian or Ghanaian. Is it likely you could put a call to some of your friends and say, And of course, you've got the money, you've got the influence, you've got the popularity, so she's going to be equally attracted to you. So is it possible you're going to make an attempt to say, I need this over here? Is that possible? The answer is yes. So this is how drugs work. Now, if the policy, now some of the countries where you can't do rubbish with drugs are in Asia. They don't speak English too much with you when it comes to drugs. They kill you right away. There's nothing like my brother is in the force. If they catch you, they'll kill you. So nobody, no sane businessman dealing with any kind of drug dares go there. Do you understand? So it has to do with the policy, like you rightly admitted. It has a lot to do with policy.
Not blaming Nigeria. I'm saying that it has to be collaboration between both countries.
Exactly.
I have to control that. I saw it flowing in, but I also felt like the Cameroonian authority, same as the Nigerian authority, is trying to fight at their port. The Cameroonian authority at the border should also try to fight it. That's what I was driving at.
Manuel.
And I wanted to move to my next experience, which was Cape Town. So before Lufuno jumped in, I also had an experience in Cape Town, which was more of a cultural shock. Because when I went to, like the last 3 years or so, I've been visiting Cape Town like twice or so. I got to Cape Town and the number of homeless people I saw was shocking. For a country which online we are sold the dream of South Africa is a very successful country. They have like the best houses, best health and everything. The level of poverty I saw, the number of homeless people, you have a whole like a football field thing, and people, I mean, Lufuno, you could disagree or you agree if I am saying the right thing. They actually just do like some wheelbarrow thing with all their clothes. Homeless people, so many. I'm from more of an urban kind of royal area in Cameroon, and we rarely have homeless people unless the person is mentally unstable. We don't have homeless people. But I saw a number of, they are okay mentally, but they were homeless.
There's a lot of moving parts when we discuss substance misuse or substance abuse, and like my brother Joseph said, we have to be careful not to overstep any boundaries when because we're looking for a resolve at the end of the day. And I think at the heart of the problem is the fact that we all need to understand that when the brain is still developing, using drugs at a tender age has incredible potential to disrupt brain function, all right? Especially in critical areas like motivation, memory, learning, judgment, and behavior control. So those that it really works. And in England, where I live, there is what we call county lines, all right, which is the peddling and the supply, the transportation and supply of drugs by children and vulnerable people. Okay, so these drug peddlers and these mafias, as we call them, they've become increasingly smart. So they before the police find out the root cause, or before the police find out what they are already doing, they're already at the next level. They're one step ahead sometimes of the police. All right, so the police is always playing catch up. All right, even in England sometimes it's the case. So I know that in Africa, where there's a lot of homelessness and there's a lot of a need, okay, and there's a lot of people who are frustrated with the system, anybody can be vulnerable at any particular point in time. So and some needs can make somebody vulnerable. So like my brother Emmanuel was talking about the geographical location of what he's witnessed, and it's interesting that one thing that cuts across is it's regardless of location. It's regardless of location. It has to be dealt on its own merits. So someone can all of a sudden come into vulnerability because of a need. All right, and then at that point in time, what appears to be the savior is drugs. Right. So what I want to establish here is there is always going to be a supply chain, and like my brother Joseph said, this supply chain makes millions out of this, and that supply chain is not willing to stop or back down because that's the only livelihood they know. right? The government has not put enough structures in place to ensure that people are progressing in their respective fields. If I've learned pharmacy, I am going to progress as a pharmacist. I'm not going to end up as a bus conductor. Do you get what I'm saying? So there's a whole lot of socioeconomic obstacles. There's a whole lot of things that really act as a spanner in the works when it comes to us overcoming this cancer of drug abuse.
I just feel like Kwame has very well concluded what I was driving at. I wanted to just touch the similarity in the various parts of Africa, just to show that it's not unique to any part, but we have the same problem and we have to face it in the same approach. I usually propose holistic solutions to social problems. So when we move into establishing the causes of the solutions, it's something which it's, when you travel around Africa, at times when you are based in Cameroon, it looks like it's just a Cameroonian problem. But once you travel around, you realize that it is connected and it's similar. The UN office, how do they call it, Drugs and Crime Survey for 2018, cutting across Africa, established that we have like 5 million users coming in from West Africa, mainly the Nigerian, Ghana, Ivory Coast border. And then the main driver to this high consumption of drugs is poverty, unemployment, and deplorable living conditions. So when you look at this report, that's 2018, not so long ago, it shows that it's the same, and we know Africa is plagued by this. That's what he just concluded, saying it's the same things of poverty, unemployment, deplorable living conditions, which is very related. So
spoken a lot about some of the causes, although we were sharing our personal experience, I think they are kind of linked. So does anybody have any other cause that I feel we have not yet mentioned before we dive to talk about the solutions? Yes.
Yeah. One part, I'd like to say that some of the root causes, like we've established, weak government policies and lack of political will to drive the much needed change to realize how deadly drug abuse is. So deadly. As a healthcare practitioner, I can tell you, it affects the way you behave, the way you think, the way you perceive things. We must remember the definition of drug abuse. This is a kind of practice that affects you. Anything that affects the way you behave, the way you perceive things, the way you think has consumed you. Because what it means is going to affect the way you relate to people. It's going to affect the effort you make in your work, your family, everything about you, even your relationship with your God. Because it's the same thing that can make you take off all your clothes and walk through the streets naked without feeling any, because you're suffering from, because you've got no bounds, disinhibition. So weak government policies and lack of political will is one. Dysfunctional families. A lot of family institutions are breaking down. Can you imagine how it feels? I don't know if anybody on the panel has experienced growing without your parents, or seeing your parents fight. So the child is one place crying because the mother is crying. So the child grows with a lot of pain, with a lot of emotional abuse. And then every day the child is pained. I have met people, I have counseled people, I've met persons who went into prostitution, who went into smoking, drinking, using all sorts of drugs, especially ladies who, that's my encounter. I don't have the statistics now, whether it's more female or more male, but I've counseled persons who had this kind of exposure, and it actually made them to begin to seek for, help in order to feel happy, and then they resorted to drugs. Institutional failures, the law enforcement agents that I talked about, that when they get you, instead of, keeping you where you belong, for having a banned substance in you, they collect some money from you, collect the banned substance for their own personal use, and let you go. So if you have enough money to pay, then they let you go. And what happens when they let you go? The fellow gets back, and every other person who saw him smoking, who probably would have been saying, bro, this thing you're doing, if they catch you, they will arrest you. And then he comes back telling them, forget that thing. Arrest what? Okay, didn't you see that they arrested me? Am I not out? So there is no lesson, no hard lessons to learn. So everybody says, okay, well, let's smoke now. These guys are our colleagues in the smoking, in the drug use, so we know how to get to them.
Yeah, Joseph, to what you were saying, I mean, yeah, please feel free to disagree with me, but it appears to me that one of the reasons why the law enforcement is really not making the mark in terms of gigantic strides in resolving this is because